in charge of that.
Paris, that's a substitute.
I'm trying, Jacob. I'm trying. I'm getting a lot of returns on my CM plan.
What's that mean? What's the problem?
A committee.
What's the matter now?
All
Paris?
that money you got
Are we
wired.
serving turkey or not?
Oh, I love a good turkey.
Bottom line is, when are we doing the CM?
When do we finish, Yaakov, officially?
Thanksgiving, no?
We're finishing on a Sunday.
And I think Thanksgiving is that Thursday.
Oh, so you want to make it a mukdam?
If anybody has a calendar, maybe they could check. So the shaila is, we're finishing that Sunday. We have to finish it first before we make the CM, no?
Yeah, that's yeah. I agree.
So that's the problem, you know what I mean? Eating the Suda, that was this year before this one. Maybe that's shot, Jacob. You have a drink, you don't really want to wash because you want to have room for the meat.
We're finishing it the Sunday before.
The Sunday before, so that Thursday is Thanksgiving. So the shaila is, do we want to do it on Sunday or do we want to do it when there's officially no work?
Right, the 22nd of November is the last day of the Daf of Eruvin.
And Thanksgiving is?
The 26th, I think.
So can we take a vote?
What are we voting on now?
Then parents, you're not going to auction this off?
Maybe we should bid it off. Do it on which day, Parrots? How much money do I have? Maybe you should bid it off to the highest bidder. Who's the highest bidder now?
Can you make it at 7:45 just to make Naftali angry, though?
Love you.
Does anybody have a preference, Sunday versus Thursday?
I don't know why we can't make a CM on Sunday and Thursday.
I was talking about the seeing.
Does
Why can't we do-
anybody need to help their wives on Thursday that want to make it on Thursday?
I'm going to be in a food coma on Thursday. Let's call it what it is. So Sunday works.
I thought
You're gonna be here, but Simon, you're gonna be local?
Simon, you going in?
No. I'm my in-laws live here now. I don't have to come back to New York. You kidding me?
No, for the steam.
I know what a siyum is. I can go to my in-laws though. My mother-in-law's making Thanksgiving. I'm putting on my fat pants.
Yeah, does anybody have any Thanksgiving plans?
You and
No,
Joe Giuliani.
Biden canceled Thanksgiving.
No, just the opposite. He didn't say.
Let's there's Lashon Hara, then there's like different levels, like even for Biden, settle down with that, you can't cancel.
Tzviakov, do you have a psak on Thanksgiving?
I gotta just sort of Five Cohen hold that it's also midaraisa, not only for Yidden to make a Thanksgiving meal. He says it's also deraisa for a goy to have a Thanksgiving meal.
What's that mean?
Why?
That was already when I saw that was like beyond. That chumra was beyond.
Why?
Yeah. He said avodah zarah straight.
Thanksgiving's avodah zarah?
That doesn't make any sense.
I can't argue with Reb Feivel, obviously, but what's the avodah zarah?
I don't know exactly. Wasn't Rav Hutner very big that it's avodah zarah?
So what you're saying is we shouldn't make a turkey siyum?
What?
Yaakov, I thought Moshe said
siyum?
it's outside guy to do, not outside avodah zarah.
I love Yis bathrobe.
No, it's avodah zarah.
That's not what Moshe said.
We could vote in America, but we can't have Thanksgiving.
Maris, are we saving people from making a deraisa? Right? If we're saving people from a deraisa, maybe we should talk to make the siyum on Thanksgiving because those that won't partake and be over in a deraisa.
Maybe.
Yaakov, I thought Moshe speaks about it. It doesn't say it's out.
Ramosha has a few chuvas where
I'm saying, but he never says
okay,
it's avodah zarah.
not okay.
But even if it's not okay, he does not say because it's avodah zarah. He says because of you shouldn't go after what Goyim do. No, same way you wouldn't go to a ballpark possibly.
No, it comes from.
Don't say that. No, going to ballparks. We're going
I'm
to
just
ballparks.
saying, what's the difference?
Stop for going to ballparks.
What's the difference?
When are we allowed to?
It never brings up avodah zarah.
You gotta eat your hot dog in the kazayas
Why is that any different? I'm asking. Whatever problems you have with going to a ballpark, why is it any different than having this meal?
No, because this meal is if you hold that it stems from thanking their avodah zarah for whatever it is, so then that's a problem. Having this meal.
I just remember learning that too. I
From
never saw that
Shiyakov.
part brought down.
Wait,
I'm not saying
because you
what-
mentioned a hot dog.
I'm not
Isn't it
saying
the
Rav Moshe
machlokes
says
in
it.
the
I'm not saying
Rishayim?
I'm just saying, whatever Elisha had issues with it, it didn't seem like it was
I know, but
because of
Rav
Avodah Zarah.
Hutner
Yeah.
had issues with it for avodah zarah.
I hear it. So I'm saying, why did Elisha not?
Oh, I don't know. That I don't know. Ich weiß nicht.
Because you mentioned hot dog, is actually a bun in one hot dog a kibeya?
I would imagine a bun is kibeya. No.
Those regular buns from Pas Yisrael? Is it kibeya?
Tiago,
I
once we're
would-
on
I
the
would
topic,
think
do you
so.
eat
I would
turkey?
think
Naftali, that's why Joey Chestnut eats 85 of them because of the suffix.
Hey, I've eaten my share also, but I just want to know about one.
I would
Tiago,
assume that I'll
once
check.
once we're on the topic, do you eat turkey?
What do you mean? At Bechlal because of the Messiah business?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
So once again, we have reached a consensus amongst all of the people on the daf that we have not come to a conclusion.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
We're gonna go for a recount.
Parrots, it's unanimous.
Unanimous. There you go. The bottom line is, when do we want it? Thanksgiving or Thursday or Sunday? How about that?
I'd say
or
Sunday.
Thursday?
I'm probably by my parents.
One second. Parrot, Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend or Sunday before Thanksgiving weekend, the day we finish?
The day we finish, Sunday. That's Sunday. What's wrong with that?
No, I think Parrot means the Thanksgiving weekend Sunday.
No, I was either or. It doesn't matter. The Sunday is a day most people.
I
aren't
think
working
there are going to be
Sunday.
people that are going to be doing Thanksgiving with their family. So for that reason, it makes more sense to be able to. I know nobody cares about the Zmanim in the daf, but maybe a Siyam, you could also accommodate people.
Shameless plug there.
And I'm not talking about me. I don't think I have any plans, but I'm sure other people in the daf do.
Listen, Landau,
I'm probably going to my parents.
We're going to bring a bed for you to the Siyam so you could feel like the play,
Is the Siyam in person?
Landau, if you beg harder, Landau, maybe someone will invite you to the party. English colonists celebrated days of Thanksgiving as part of their religion. It was the thing because of the first harvest, the first winter harvest.
Right. So it comes
from religion.
Yeah.
But it depends if it's. It depends if it's a avodah zarah or not. It's a machlokes in the Rishayim if it's a avodah zarah or not.
Right.
That's simple.
Yeah. Landau and Aaron Horowitz, I gotta go with it. Oy about the turkey.
Yeah.
Don't forget the green bean casserole.
Right. Stuffing.
Okay, so no, we'll do it the day of the Siyam then, no? That would
That's
be
the Sunday before.
Thanksgiving.
1 second. No, we'll find out if anybody's going to be in for Thanksgiving weekend. Gershon, you going to be at Thanksgiving weekend?
Not
unless I have a sponsor.
We'll see how it plays out. We'll see what happens. But I guess, for safety's sake, also, I might be stuck. I might be required to quarantine, in which case I can't go to work next week.
I think the rules are now that if you.
What does that mean? Doc, does that mean we're not seeing you for holiday, Doc?
Yeah.
I think that was a mistake.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, so let's go. Yeah, so let's chazah from yesterday. So so we had this. Rabbi Yehuda said that according to Rameir, roofs and yards are considered one thing, and carvers are not, right? And Rabbi Shimon holds everything is the same, right? Roofs, if you have no eruv, you can carry from a roof to a yard to a karfif.
Oh, strange.
Yeah, and then the Gemara brought a brisa trying to prove Rav, and then Rabbi Yehuda, and then we said you can't. Then we talked about this bringing the Sefer Torah. They snuck the Sefer Torah. So you can't bring rayas from dangerous times. You can't bring rayas, right? Then we had Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. If this whole din of Reb Shimon applies in houses that didn't make an eruv together, and that's we're going to continue with that actually. Yeah, and then on Amud Beis, we were trying to prove that Reb Shimon doesn't apply if the Chatzeros don't make an eruv. So with that, we're on the bottom of Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis. Yeah, we're continuing this whole sugya of, and let's just chazer it, even though we just mumbled it, but just to make sure we're all on the same page here, is that they forgot to make, they didn't make an eruv between two neighbors. Again, we're using the mashal of multi-family houses. You have two family houses next door to each other, right? They didn't make an eruv to carry from one neighbor, from one house to the other house, or actually from one yard to the other yard. So Reb Shimon holds that anything that's in the yard from before Shabbos, you can carry from one house to the other house. On that, we have a machlokes whether if the two family house made an eruv with each other, they made an eruv with again themselves, meaning the landlord and the tenant of house number A made an eruv with each other, and the landlord and the tenant of house B made an eruv with each other, but the house A and house B did not make an eruv with each other, right? Again, there's two houses, house A and house B. House A has two families in it, house B has two families in it. House A made an eruv with each other, with the two families, so that they can carry into their yard, and house B did the same thing. But house A to house B did not make an eruv so that the yards can be shared. So Reb Shimon says, in that case, you're not allowed to carry from the stuff that was in the yard from before Shabbos, from house A's yard to house B's yard. And the reason is because what happens is you might end up taking stuff from from inside the house to the yard, and then take that from the yard and put it to the other yard, which is not allowed, right? So the Gemara is going to try and disprove that. So Amrle Ravina le Ravashi, last line. So Ravina said to Ravashi, Mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, did Rabbi Yochanan say this? Yeah, that halacha is like Reb Shimon, and even if, meaning Rabbi Yochanan paskin not like what the opinion we said, it was a machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says that even if the house is made in eruv, you're still allowed to carry the stuff from one yard to the other. So Mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, Ba'amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha k'stam Mishna. The halacha is like a stam Mishna, right? And meaning a Mishna that's anonymous. Tanan kaisel shebein shtei chatzeros. And we had this case a few times. You have a Mishna that says if you have a wall, it's in between two yards, gavaya asara. It's 10 tvachim high for roichev arba, and it's 4 tvachim wide, which means it's that the fence is considered itself a reshus hayachid. Ma'arv and shnayim, same ma'arv and echad. Two can make an eruv and one cannot. Yeah, meaning you can't. It's the wall is so high and so wide that the 2 yards cannot make an eruv together, unless obviously they had a door in the fence. And they cannot make one big eruv. Let's say there's fruit on top of the wall. Each one could go up to the top of the wall and eat the food at the top of the wall. But they cannot go down. They can't bring the food down to the bottom and eat it. So what do you see? So what's the Gemara's kasha from here? So the Rabbi Yochanan paskins like this, and Rabbi Yochanan is the one that said that if they make an eruv, then they are allowed to carry from one yard to the other. If you're allowed to carry from one yard to the other, why can't they take the fruit down from the wall and eat it, right? So Gemara answers no. What it means lamata doesn't mean that lamata to the field, to the yard. It means lamata to the house. My lamata labatim. When it says that you're not allowed to bring the food down, it means you're not allowed to bring the food down and eat it in the house because there's no eruv, right? So you can't carry the food inside the house, but you're allowed to carry the food all around the yard. So then it's not a kasha of Yochanan. Oh, but Tani Reb Chia learned the brisa that says it's Reb Chia had a version of the brisa that says that each person can't stand in the place, which means in the yard, and eat. So that doesn't sound like they're allowed to eat it in the yard. And this next line, I wanted, again, we've had a lot of very interesting lines, each Amud Baruch Hashem. So Amar Lei, so they said to him, V'chi Rebbe Loi Shana Reb Chia Minayin Loi. If Rebbe didn't put it into the Mishnah, then how does Reb Chia know that he should add it to the Mishnah? Right? Here what is saying this line, he's saying we have a brisa that clarifies the Mishnah. And the Gemara is saying, well, if Rebbe didn't put it into the Mishnah, then who gives Reb Chia the right to quote a brisa? Right? And qualify the case of the Mishnah. Isn't that what we do all the time with brises? We take different brises and we clarify. What?
Yeah, the Rav Chia also, wasn't he like the master of brises?
Yes. Yes. And
I'm
right.
saying
Exactly.
it makes sense that Rebbe would be the one for the Mishnah, and Rav Chia is the brisa guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what Rashi says. Rashi Rav Chia Shasider v'Sasam as Habraisus v'Talmidai. It was even his Talmud, right? So we're saying, how does he know it? Yeah. So basically, we're saying, okay, even though there is a brisa, I mean, without a doubt, there is a brisa, but where we don't, if Rebbe didn't put it in himself, so then we don't have to be concerned with it. Yeah. So that's I don't know what else to say is the pshat. It's just very interesting that you have a kasha from a brisa and we say no, this brisa is not. It's not. If Rebbe didn't put it into the Mishnah, so that's it. It's not necessary. I don't know if it means it's not accurate or Rebbe must have had a good reason why he didn't put this Tanai into his Mishnah. I guess
it could be that this brisa is another shita, but it's not Stam Mishnah. Meaning it's not explaining our Mishnah. It's a different shita.
You're saying it's a different sheet. It's a different shita, not Rebbe.
Right. Meaning to say it's Stam Mishnah is not going la halacha. That you can't say because Rebbe was sasan. Rebbe did not add that part of the. Rebbe didn't add that part.
I hear. Okay. I hear. Maybe. Right. And Rebbe Bechiro is his Talmud though, so that's everybody's pointing that out. Rashi that he was a Talmud.
Right, but Rebbe did, but maybe to say to bring down a brisa that's pshat in the Mishnah, maybe that's a bridge too far.
That's what you're saying, right.
Rebbe was sasan. Rebbe B'davka only said certain words so that it wouldn't, B'davka that way.
Right. No, I hear that. Okay. Yeah, very good. I hear that, Teretz. Okay, good. So now we get another confusing case. So Itmar.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
Could it be that we read the Mishnah, Yiridu Lamata? Could it be that the correction to that my Lamata is Lamita Labatim, because they ate on mitos?
Ooh, that's a drush. Is that the pshat?
I don't know. I'm thinking it could be. And therefore, if Rebbe chose to use the word lamata, which could be touched up lamita, then he deliberately didn't choose that brisa. However, Rebbe had a choice. The Tana said one way or the other. Rebbe chose to use this version of it, which could be bedafki lamita.
Right. I hear. It's a drasha. That's a drasha. But okay, why not? Definitely could die to write it in the Sefer for sure. No, seriously, why not?
He's looking for a sponsor better.
Yeah, I hear. Okay, so let's say Itmar. Yes, so that's right. The Shtei Chatzeros, if you have 2 yards, v'churva achas b'nein, and you have a destroyed house in the middle. Yeah, there must have been a lot of churvas back then, because right, every few blocks we have a churva. So you have 2 yards, and there's a destroyed house in the middle. Achas irva v'achas la irva. One guy made an eruv with the destroyed house, and one guy did not. Okay, so now what's going to be the din there? We give it to the one that didn't make an eruv, but the one that did make an eruv, he can't carry there. Why? Because we're afraid that he's going to put the kalim of a house and he's going to bring it out to the churva. Okay, now how's this for confusing? So you got one guy who made an eruv, the other guy didn't make an eruv. The guy who didn't make the eruv could carry his stuff. The guy that did make the eruv can't.
What's he putting in this?
Destroy
other
the
house?
I don't know. Toy. I don't know. Whatever it is. Toys.
On Shabbos, he's bringing his tools.
I don't know, tools, the toys, whatever.
He's bringing his toys there on Shabbos.
Little pieces of challah that he had left over.
Yeah. Meaning, I think the guy wants to, let's say, he wants to get away from everybody, so he wants to hide in the churva, right?
Sounds like you.
That's so. Anyway, so it comes out again. One house, there's 2 yards on either side of this churva. One made an eruv with it, one did not. So we're saying that the one that made the eruv cannot carry the stuff in the yard. The one that didn't can, which is basically, right? Which is basically proving what we've been saying, that if you don't make an eruv, then the stuff that's already in the yard can be carried from one place to the other. But the stuff that didn't, if you did make an eruv, then we're afraid that you're going to carry stuff out of the house and then to the yard, and then from the yard to the churva, which is not allowed. Right? Even you can even carry to the one that made an eruv, shtein asuras, even hafshel she'irva, meaning even the one that made an eruv, shtein asuras, and they're both asur, right? So, yeah, so that's a machlokes here, whether both or one can carry into this churva or not. If you're going to say that there should be both mutter, right? So why can't you say, right, that you can't give the chatzar that didn't make an eruv to the chatzar that made an eruv, right? Again, so this is talking about where one made the eruv, one didn't make the eruv. So maybe when Rav said his din to limit Rav Shimon's heter to only if there was no eruv, right? But maybe that was only if both of them didn't make an eruv. But if one of them made an eruv, then it would be allowed. So Gemara says, no, hasam there, kivan de minteri mani de batim bechatzer, in a regular situation, not in a churva, right? People are not going to have a problem leaving their stuff in the yard, right? Because it's watched. Minteri means it's watched, meaning yards are normally yards are normally watched, and you're not worried about leaving your stuff there. So kivan de minteri mani de batim bechatzer, so asilafuke. So then you might end up carrying your stuff out of your house to the yard, because that's a common thing to do, right? People carry stuff from their house into the yard, which here they're not allowed to do because we're afraid that you're going to carry it to the other yard. But here by the destroyed, kivan de loy minteri, meaning by a destruction, it's like a hefker house. The stuff's not going to be watched. Kivan de loy minteri mani. The chotzer b'churva, since the mani means utensils, since the utensil will not be watched in the yard of the churva, so nobody's going to come to carry it out. So that's why we would say a different din here than in a din by a regular house. Igadari, now the Gemara just says the exact different version of this Gemara in the opposite direction. Even the one that made an eruv, B'shtein mutaris, and they're both, meaning even the one that made an eruv is allowed to carry stuff from yard to the destructed house, right? Then the Gemara says, "V'imtayim b'shtein asuras." We say that they should both be asur. B'shein noisim chatzar shaloi irva l'chatzar she'irva, because we don't give a yard that didn't make an eruv to a yard that made an eruv, because again we're afraid that you're going to end up carrying things that you're not allowed to. So Hasam, the Gemara answers, no, kivan the minteri mani debatim b'chatzar. There, since people are watching their kalim in a regular house, it's not mutter. The Rabbanan didn't allow you to move the kalim from one yard to the next, because you're going to end up carrying it out to the yard, because that's a normal thing to do. But in the churva, it's not considered safe, right? It's not considered watched, and so therefore there's not a lot of kalim there, and memela, we're not worried that you're going to end up carrying out your kalim to a yard, even though there was an eruv. So we're not concerned that you're going to take the kalim from your house to the yard, and then from the yard to the churva. Okay, Baruch Hashem, that's the hard part of the daf. Now we get into a more interesting part of the daf. And this Mishna is a repeat of a Mishna we had I don't know, a while ago, probably a month ago. You have Gag Gadol Samach L'Katan. You have a large roof next to a small roof. Well, this we had a few days ago, but we had the main sugya of this was like a month ago. So Gag Gadol Samach L'Katan. You have a large roof next to a small roof, right? Hagadol mutter, hakatan aser. The large roof is mutter, the small roof is aser. And then the exact same case by a yard. Chatzur gedayla shenivritza l'katana. You have a large yard, that opened up to a small yard. Uteres, it's mutter. Ukatana, asura, the small yard's awesome. It's just one big open door, right? Did anybody post pictures? Okay, the basic here. Oh, here we go. Here, I have a good zap. This is
Yeah,
the
he
big
posted
yard.
them. He posted them.
You posted them? Hold on, let me see. Where's my phone? On my hand. Let's see.
Let's scroll up. He didn't post them.
I posted them, I think, yesterday. No? Posted them
Maybe.
yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
Where's your classic large roof to the small roof? No, not that. No, that's not today. That was well, okay. Let's just use this as a muscle. No. Here's the large yard, right? So this way. This is the large yard. This is the small yard, right there, like that, right? Or this is the large roof. The black, the cell phone is the large roof. The white is a small roof. So now, this white right here. One whole wall is missing from its eruv, right? Where are the four walls? You've got one wall here, one wall on the bottom, one wall on the side. But right here, it's totally open. It's only a 3-walled yard, right? But the guy standing in the black, right, in the phone of the large roof, so that's got 4 walls because you have either side of the white here gets indented, and that makes 4 walls, right? So as long as this opening is less than 10 amas, then you're going to have a perfectly fine eruv, right? So therefore, the small, we're going to say the small one is good for the meaning the big people, the people in the big yard can annex the small yard. The people in the small yard are stuck and they can't use any sort of eruv, right? That's basically what it is. So then the Gemara says, Lamali lamisni tarti. What do you need 2 cases for? So the Gemara says, L'Rav katani gag dumi the chotzer. According to Rav, we're going to say that a roof is similar to the chotzer. Ma chotzer min kura mechitzta. By a chotzer, the mechitzas are very recognizable, right? You have a yard, you have a large yard with walls around it, and then you have a small yard with walls around it. Af gag nami min kura mechitzta. So a roof also, its walls are recognizable. Yeah. So meaning, because we're saying when in this case with the roof, right? Going back to this, and it's a roof, where is that 4th wall, right? So you're going to say good asik right here that this wall goes straight up, but rather, right? So the question is, well, you can't see it because it's one house up against another house. So this wall right here can't be seen. Okay, well the Shmuel, it's the other way. The roof is. I'm sorry, no, it's the same way. Gag is dumi l'chotzer, ma chotzer the kadarsi l'rabim, just like a chotzer. People are constantly walking back and forth. Af kagnami the kadarsi l'rabim. So a roof also, the rabim is walking over it, right? And therefore, you're not going to be able to say good asik when there's too many people walking there. You can't say that the wall goes straight up. This gets into that whole issue that we had last week. That when you say good asik, does that really mean that the wall goes straight up? You see people walking through, right, through the wall, right? So that's what Shmuel is saying. Okay, fine. Now Yosef Rabba, Rab Zeira, this is an interesting Gemara, right? So Yosef Rabba, Rab Zeira, Rabba R Yochanan, Yosef Abaya Gabayu, they were all sitting there. Yosef Yukamer, and he said, Shma mino masnisa. We see from our Mishna, Diure Gedoyla B'Ketana, Ve'ein Diure Ketana B'Gedoyla. The people that live in the big yard are annexing the small yard, and they can access the small yard. But the people in the small yard are not part of the big yard. Right? It's basically you have like the large city swallows up the small city. The small city is not included in the large city. What's the case? Ketzad. Now we have something called klayim, right? As we know, you're not allowed klayim bekerem. So you're not allowed to plant in a vineyard. You're not allowed to plant anything else. Any sort of grains or whatever it is. That's klayim bekerem, right? And how much is it? We had this way back that it's within 4 amos of each other. They're not allowed to be planted, right? But what happens if you have on either side of a fence, right? You have on either side of a fence, one side of a fence right up against the fence is grapes, and the other side of the fence is grain. right? But they're not 4 amos away from each other. So that the halacha is very clear that that's not klayim. Even though if you took away the fence, you'd say, hey, it is klayim, right? But it's not klayim. And the pshat is because the Torah only aser planting things next to each other if you can clearly see that they're mixed. If they're not mixed, even if theoretically under the ground they can be mixing, but since there's a fence there, so it's no problem, right? So what happens if I have the big yard, right? The larger yard plants grapes in it, and then in the smaller yard, right? Again, it's open from one. It's the big yard to the small yard is open, right? Again, just using this example, I don't know if anybody's looking, but the big yard has grapes, and then the small yard you put grain, or you put grapes in the small yard, and in here you put grain. Is that considered a mechitza, and therefore they can even be within 4 amos of each other, or not? Right? So ketzad gefana b'gedola. If you have grapes in the large yard, also l'zroya as a katana, you are not allowed to plant anything in the small one, because that's considered one big yard. Because we said that the big yard swallows up the small yard. And if you do, and if you do plant it, then it's going to be, it's also, you cannot, also bahana. It's also bahana. Yeah. Gefanim mutarin. But meaning the ones in the small yard, the grains that are in the small yards are also, but the grapes, vines that are in the big yard are mutar. Yeah. Why? Because for the small yard, it's looked at like there's a mechitza there. Meaning, if you look at it from the small yard's angle, there is no wall there. If you look at it from the big yard's angle, then there is a wall there, right? So therefore, it's not going to be a problem.
What's the pshat on this? What's the pshat on that? I mean, are we talking about Metzius, or are we talking about
no?
But why is there? So why would there be? Isn't there an isser of the them actually getting nourishment from the other? Isn't that where the isser?
No, that's what we're saying. If there's it doesn't work like that. It works if there's.
Why doesn't it? I thought that's an isser klai karen.
No, so you got
it gets nourishment from the other plants.
Right, but if there's a fence there, then it doesn't. Right? Look at the
but this is not a real fence. I'm saying if there's a real fence there, maybe you could say the Metzius is that it's not going to get nourishment. But if there's no real fence, then why would we not say that?
Right.
This is a lumdish offense. It's not.
It is. It's a lumdish thing. Yeah, it's a lumdish thing.
So where is this? How does that even fit into what really goes on when it comes to?
Because look at the last. If you look at the Taisus on Amud Beis, the last couple of lines there, Taisus seems to be saying. There says the Rahman loy koper Hashem soder. The oy ksiv sodcha loy sita kerem. Have a mashma the koper Hashem soder. It's not worried about the din of soder. It's just worried about that should be considered separated. Yeah.
Don't we have all these dinim? Don't we have all these dinim when it comes to climb that has to do with the nourishment aspect? That's why it has to be a certain distance away.
Yes, correct, but not when there's a fence in between.
But there's no real fence.
Correct, but this is the equivalent of a fence. If you're not, if you want, that's exactly what Abaya's chiddush is. Is that for this?
Chiddush? It's not a chiddush in Metzius. It's the chiddush in Lumdis. But what does that have to do with climb, which is not? It's not because climb is not totally in that. We see all these svaras when it comes to climb that it's totally in how much it's removed from it in nourishment, not in Lumdis. Where do we get this from?
No, because that is considered a mechitza. If it's considered a mechitza for Shabbos, right?
Why on Shabbos there are dinim of Gaid Asik and other things that we say it's lumdis. What does that have to do with the mitzvah, whether it nourishes from the other plant or not?
Because this acts as a fence. That's exactly what he's saying. It acts as a fence.
In Mitzias?
That's what it seems. No?
How's that possible? How's that possible? There's no fence here.
And I don't know.
You can't change the Matzias. Either it nourishes it or it doesn't nourish it.
No, but that's no.
And if that's true, then Gedol and Katana shouldn't matter. If it acts as a fence, then why should we look at one way and not the other way?
No, because it's not a fence for the small one, and
so then it's not a Matzias. That's only because one can see the walls and one can't. In Lumdis.
Right. No, that's true, but that is his chiddush. How it works, I can't tell you. I don't know how it works.
I mean,
Where
I
does it
understand the
say that
Kiddush
Kilayim has anything to do with nourishment?
all over the inyan of Klein. It has to do with nourishment. Mishnayos and Klein continue to talk about how things nourish each other, and that's why you have to plant at a certain distance from each other.
No, but Akiva, if you plant on either side of a fence within an amma of each other, grapes on one side, grain on the other, they're nourishing from each other without a doubt. They are.
So then, what's Pshatis Mutter?
It is because that's what it has to do with.
The halacha is because why? Just because
you're right.
Just
it has to do with nourishment. It has to do with nourishment. But the Torah Lamaisa says if it's on the other side of a fence, then it's not considered klaya kerem. That's what he's saying. It's not. It's that's
because somehow we look at it and it's not nourishing each other, but to the same degree as what we normally ask.
Yeah. Well, once
this
you
is
start
pure
lump. Once you say that an actual fence stops it, once you say an actual fence makes the client not be, so then the virtual fence is going to do the same thing. Because even when they're on either side of a regular fence, what?
I don't understand that at all.
All right, so Baruch Hashem,
and also
for not understanding.
No, I'm just saying, and also one side could look at it as a fence, one side can't. That makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, but that's
good. It's spaced out. So if you take a small stick, you could say good ostic, and that's the fence.
A small stick? No, it has to fit into the parameters of what a fence is.
Why can't you just say that virtually the wall goes?
No, because you have to fit into the parameters of what the virtual wall is. You can't just make up a virtual wall.
No, you put in a little stick.
No, but that doesn't work as a virtual wall. Here, the big yard, right? The indentations that come in from where the big yard meets the small yard. I don't know if you're driving, so there's no point in me holding up the thing because then don't look at it, right? But if you have the big yard here and the small yard here, the reason why the big yard is looked at like it's fenced in is because it has this area right here and this area right here where my thumb is. That acts as a fence to the big yard. The small yard has no fence covering it here. Zero. There's nothing. It's totally open. So what we're saying is that the big guy is for the big guy, it's considered a fence. For the small guy, it's not a fence. So therefore, if the grapes are here, it's considered for them, it's a fence. So therefore, it's not going to become usher. For this guy, it's not a fence, and therefore, his seeds are going to be usher because they got nourishment from the grapes. Akiva, it's a wild chiddush. It's a wild chiddush, 100%. But that's what the Gemara, that's what we're saying.
I think it's just more of a chiddush when you say that one side can look at it one way, one side can't when it's lumdus, and it has nothing to do with stopping the nourishment at all.
Right. It has nothing to do with stopping the nourishment. The nourishment's going to be there either way you cut the cake, right? But that's mamash what Abai is saying. Well, let's get to more examples, and then the Gemara goes through, I think, 4 or 5 examples, right? But if it does the opposite, kvanim b'ketano, right? If you put the grapes in the small yard, then mutter l'zroya, then it's even mutter to plant other grains in the big one. Why? Because there's a fence there. Finished. There's a fence. There's a virtual fence there. Right? Now, let's see the next case. A woman's getting a get, right? So we know the halacha is that the man doesn't necessarily have to hand. Normally, the pasuk says you got to give it to the yad of the isha. What happens if you just dump the get into her yard?
That's in Gittin. You're allowed to.
That's in Gittin. Yes,
Says you're allowed to.
Correct. So what happens if she owns the big yard and the small yard, and she's standing in the big? Now it only works. The get only works, according to some, but that's what we're going with here. Is that if she's standing in the yard, then he's allowed to. Then he can put it into her yard. So let's say she's standing in the big yard, and he throws the get into the small yard that's attached to it. Or if she's in the small yard,
both of them.
The small yard.
She owns both of them. Yes.
So if she owns both of them, why isn't it just considered one?
No, but just the question is there a mechitza there?
But if she owns both, then why is there that mechitza?
No, but that's
both.
So owning both would be negeya for Shabbos, but not necessarily for, it would be a fence.
Shmuel David.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the halacha at all. I have zero idea. I'm just asking you if she owns a house in Manhattan and she owns a house in Paris, and she's in Manhattan, you put the get in the house in Paris.
It's lovely case, but that's not ours. She's got back-to-back chutzers here.
But they're
right,
separate properties. But they're separate properties.
What?
That's the point. They're separate properties. I agree.
Right,
with you,
they're separate properties.
What's the difference if they're next to each other? They're separate. That the Havamina.
Because it does make a difference if they're next to each other because it's one long yard.
That's the Havamina is they're two separate yards. So they're two separate properties. That's the Havamina. So you're going to come on to say we're going to use the same logic that we just said that maybe they're connected.
Right. So that's what it is. To be miyashiv the what you're both asking. The pshat is that we're going with the shita that holds that she has to be standing in the yard. In order to throw it into the yard, she can't be laying in her bed and she say, okay, she doesn't want to see her ex or her almost ex. She'll just dump it in the yard. No, she's got to be in the yard. In order for we're going with that shita, she's got to be in the yard. So now if she has two houses, right? Because she got from the whatever
from the first.
Severed.
From the first husband. Now this is
correct. Either the first husband or she shopped and got a house. She got a house out of this guy already. So right. So now she's got two houses right next door to each other, right? But there's an opening, this large yard, small yard. Is that considered like she's in the yard or not? Right? So then depending, we're gonna have the same thing. Isha b'gedoyla, the get b'katana, she's standing in the large yard and the get's in the small yard. Miskareshes, then she's divorced, right? Because we say if you're standing in the big yard, the small yard is part of the big yard. Isha b'katana, but if the woman is in the small yard, the get b'gedoyla, and he throws the get into the large yard, we said the small yard is considered a separate entity. Eina miskareshes, she's not divorced, right? Because again, the big yard, the small yard how do you say this now again? I kept saying annexed, right? But basically, the small yard can be part of the big yard. The big yard cannot be part of the small yard, right? Now we get into Corona Shilas. Baruch Hashem, these issues are hopefully over, right? But these were the big Shilas Pesach time with Minyanim, or after Pesach when they allowed Minyanim. Tzibur b'gedoyla, if you have the tzibur is in the big yard, the shliach tzibur b'katana, and the chazan is in the small yard.
Tiago, so you're saying the halacha works with boundaries?
Yes.
Based on what American law is? So if I own two properties, it's based on, because the American law now says I have two separate properties, and this is the property line? Or do we say it's one whole property?
No, the halacha is telling it's two separate.
Not legal, right? The halacha, halachically, not legally.
Mm-hmm.
But halacha sometimes does interesting things, like that's what Akiva was asking, right? I mean, you can theoretically have a grapevine right next to wheat, and it's no problem because from the big yard to the small yard, it's no problem. From the small yard to the big yard, it is a problem, right? Even though they're getting nourishment in that, yeah, but that's exactly what we're saying. So again, this case is the tzibur is in the big yard, and the shliach tzibur is in the small yard. Then yaitzi nidei chavas, and they're yaitza. Why? Because the tzibur get the small guy, the chazan is considered like is if he's together with the tzibur, because the small yard is part of the big yard. But if it's the opposite, tzibur b'katana, but if the tzibur is in the small yard, v'shliach tzibur b'gedoyla, again, we're talking about back then that the shliach tzibur was mitzi everybody in the davening, right? So you got a bunch of guys sitting in the small yard, and the guy that's davening for them is in the big yard, and we're saying, 1 second, the big yard's not part of this, the small yard can't be part of the big yard. So therefore, this chazan is considered a total different rishus than the rest of the people. And then they're not going to be yotzei, they're davening. Which, we could take that down to more practical, which not usually negeya, but by the way, Kiddush also, everybody's got to be in the same area, right? Sometimes people say, okay, somebody says, I'm listening to Kiddush and they're in a different room. To be yotzei Kiddush, you got to be in the same room at the minimum with the person making the Kiddush, right? Sort of the same thing here, right? You got to be in the same property, right?
Even if you could see them, right? Even if you could see them?
If what?
Even if you could see them directly?
If you could see them we'll get to that. We'll get to whether you could see them, but the pashtus is it has to be the same kvias.
So what if there's no separation, like my house? I have the yard my house came with behind me, and then we have the property next to the house that we bought. So it's a small yard and a big yard that are abutting each other.
They're fully open to each other, or you have fence?
They're fully open when there's no pool season.
Yeah, so that's considered open to each other. That sounds like it would be okay, right? Okay, so then what's the next case? This is the one was a much more negaya by Corona. Tisha b'gedoyla. You have 9 guys in the large yard. The yachid b'katana, and 1 guy in the small yard. Them it's starfin. They join, right? Why? Because the small yard can hook up with the big yard. But if you have 9 guys, Tisha b'kitana, 9 guys in the small yard, the echad b'gedayla, and 1 guy in the big yard, then ein mitzdarfin. They're not mitzdarf. Why? Because the 9 guys in the small yard cannot hook up with that 1 guy, right? So again, the small yard can be part of the big yard. The big yard can't be part of the small yard. Then
does the value of the property make a difference? If the small yard is much more valuable and the big yard's waste.
No difference. It's all tali in the mechitza. All tali in the mechitza. If there's no mechitza for the small yard, then it doesn't work. Yeah, you're right. It can theoretically be on, you know what I mean, on Manhattan or in the corner between the Bronx and Manhattan or whatever. And one is worth nothing and the other one's worth a lot. It's not going to make a difference, right? So this.
Why doesn't it work backwards for minyanim? If there's no mechitza from the small to the large, why doesn't it work that way?
What do you mean?
I mean, by Shabbos, I can understand that there is a mechitza from the big to the small, therefore it's 2 separate reshuyas.
Right.
So if there's 9 in the large one and 1 in the small one, how is he mitzvah? By going from the small to the large, or the large going to the small?
Well,
how does the tziruf work by minyanim? By minyanim, mechitza is a problem.
Right. So that's what it's got to be in the same rishus. By minyanim, it's got to be in the same rishus.
By Shabbos, it's the opposite. We need a mechitza. Mechitza is a good thing.
Correct. Exactly.
So why? I don't know which way the minyanim work over here. If there's 9 in the large one and 1 in the small one, right?
Right.
Why they're mitzaref? Because he can go to them, or because they can go to him.
He can go. He's part of them.
But he's not actually going anywhere, right? He's
right.
staying.
He doesn't need to because for him, it goes after the rabbim, right? So the rabbim are in the right place, and he has to go to them. The Yochid goes to the rabbim.
Correct.
So it is essentially backwards from Shabbos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Right? It's backwards. But that's the thing, though. That was the big tumult during Corona. You have guys in different reshuyas, right? And they're not, each one's in their own fence. Yeah. So, l'chayra, then it's not, you can't combine them to make a minyan. However, we paskin like at least b'di'evid for sure is as long as they could see each other, then that's enough. That's what the Olam was saimach on with these minyanim for Corona across the street. And there was a sheet of, I think it was the Rashba, that said that if it's across the street, seeing doesn't work. That was one of the big tumults, to make a minyan from one side of the street, the other side of the street, because the seeing doesn't work. Meaning, the reason why these Corona minyanim were a b'di'evid was because they're different reshuyas. Everybody was standing in different reshuyas, right? With walls in between them, with their fences in between them. Now, if they had doors, then it made it much more makel, right? Or you put ladders. I didn't hear anybody putting ladders in between, right? But you heard somebody put a ladder, Gershon? Okay. By us, we had, but once they started minyanim, by us, we were all, even though we were all standing on our own property, but there was no fences in between our properties. And we have an eruv between, again, me and my house, my mother's house, and my middle neighbor. So we had we had a proper minyan lahalacha, right? Because we were all in one rishus, I guess, if you go with that, and then we were all on one side of the street. But lamaisa, push comes to shove, we're makel that as long as the minyan could see each other, then that works. Okay, fine. The last
That's
case
the chidah,
is
right?
That what?
That's the chidah, that you can see each other.
Is that it's not somebody earlier than that?
I don't think so. I think it's the chidah.
I don't remember.
And does
I only
that
looked it up.
seeing each other
I only looked it
kula,
up a
is
few
that
hours ago. Why should I remember?
well?
What do you say?
Does that seeing each other kula go to Kiddush as well? Is it the same thing?
No, because Kiddush, it's a kvias. You're supposed to be, I guess it would depend, but you're supposed by Kiddush, when somebody's being mitzi, you're supposed to be in the same area. In order for one to be mitzi somebody else. See, by the minyan, it wasn't a mitzi problem. It was whether you considered combined to make 10, right? By Kiddush, one is saying Kiddush on behalf of everybody else. Unless you're together with him, it's not. It's a different thing. That's the first case here. The second case, the first case is being mitzi. The second case, the second one. Sorry, the first case is being mitzi. The second case is being what do you call? Is minyan. Yeah, what are you saying?
The shul, you had a problem by Kiddush, forgetting Corona, when the Rav makes Kiddush in the shul and the oilam goes downstairs to eat after the Kiddush.
Right, that's a bet.
That's Makom Suda. That's Makom Suda.
That's a Makom Suda issue. That's a Makom Suda issue.
No, I'm not saying.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Right, but that could be the same thing. Let's say you have those shuls where it opens up to the social hall, and they make the Kiddush there, and then but there's a mechitza, right, in between, even though it's on the same. Yeah, in a chanami. That's
and
a
you
good
make
order.
behind your wife for the mechitza. If your wife behind the mechitza.
If your wife's behind the mechitza, can you get around the mechitza? Right, if you get around the mechitza.
Benching is okay though, right? Benching is okay if you're not in the same room, and you can just see them.
Benching, yeah, benching work. We're trying to learn this all. The seeing, we're trying to learn out from Birchas Hamazon. Yeah, that's yeah. Okay.
And
right,
then
the next
halacha l'maisa if you heard Kiddush, but you were in the other room, you're not yatzing?
I don't remember now. If there are
Like
shittas that
dining
hold.
room to kitchen. Now think about a house. The wife.
No, you should not.
Salad in the kitchen. You're in the dining room.
I don't remember now if b'diavad we would say yaitza, but certainly lechatchila everybody's got to be there. Sometimes I have somebody in my house that's upstairs. One of the kids is upstairs. Make Havdalah, I'm listening. It don't fly like that.
Well, Kiddush Shabbos day is the Rabbanan anyway.
That's true. That is true.
How did Rav Moshe allow Havdalah on the phone?
And a chanami is a big b'diavad. It's a big. That was a big b'diavad.
It was only chayla. It's only by chayla.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, even that, he was not. From what I remember, that they said that he was only really v'shas hatchak. And also, you could say lumdus that if you're doing it on the phone, so it could be it's as if you're standing there with the person, right? Where's the voice? Where does it come from? I don't know. I'm throwing that out there. Meaning the voice is where it ends, or the voice is where it starts.
So if the voice,
but then you could say
you're upstairs and downstairs.
You're right. So then maybe the voice carries it. That's all part of the microphone. That's whole thing. Is it considered a new voice? Is it considered a same separate voice? That's that. Yeah.
My father always made Havdalah for his mother. She listened to the Havdalah for our house. He always made it on the phone. I don't know what Rav Moshe Paskin, but that's what my father did for 25 years for his mother.
Yeah, okay, because you don't have a brayer. That's
right.
You don't have a brayer. That's what you right. That's exactly the situation that would allow it. Yeah. Okay. So now another common case that happens: Tsaya b'gedola. If you have excrement in the large yard, also likras kriya shema b'ketana. So somebody's standing in the small yard. He's not allowed to read kriya shema because there's tsaya there, right? Yeah, because that's considered as if it's in the same rishus that he's in, and Rameli is not allowed. But tzaya v'ketana. But let's say the excrement is in the small one, mutta likras kriya shema b'gedola. Then he's allowed to read kriya shema. Why? Because there's a mechitza, right? There's also akiva. Like, what's the deal? Is either it is or it's not, right? So that's what we're saying, that it's considered like it's a different room. It's considered like a different room, right?
Is there a mitzias when it comes to partition blocking you from seeing tzaya? Isn't that a din in being able to see it?
Not
outside.
No. It's tzaya. There's two dinim. It's in the room. It's in the room.
Right. It has to be in the room. So it's not in the room.
So that's a good point. That also, by the way, this is all assuming that it doesn't smell.
Right.
If the smell
so if
reaches,
it doesn't smell, it's not in the room.
If the smell reaches, then the game is over. What?
So if it doesn't smell, it's not in the room.
If it doesn't smell,
and it's not in the room,
no.
That's the din.
If it's in the room, no. If it doesn't smell and it's in the same room, you can't.
Right, but technically this is not in the same room. I could understand that. Out the smell, you don't have any smell. And out the fact that it's not in the same room because it's in the katana, it's not in the same room. It's in a different room.
Right. No smell.
Right.
Is this a corona issue for people who have dogs?
Could be. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, it's an issue for dirty diapers and stuff like that. Right? You have that issue. Anyway, so those are the four. Was it four?
So to corona it up again, what if you have no sense of smell?
That is beferish. Even if you're a chayla and you don't have a sense of smell, it's a problem. As long as you know it smells, then it's a problem. Even if you don't, right? The question is, if you can spray what do you call it? Spray? Does that work? You spray it smells, and then you spray a room for Febreze, whatever. Right, like whatever. You spray a spray, now that hides it. So is that considered a smell or not? Okay.
If a person has if there's a dirty diaper in the kitchen and you're making Abdul in the kitchen, you're not allowed to?
Correct.
Even if it's in the garbage can?
If it's in a garbage can, so the shaila is that considered in an enclosed? It's its own mechitzas. It's its own what do you call it? So
does a diaper genie have the same din as a regular garbage can?
If people have asked that, I mamish don't remember if it should or it shouldn't. L'chayr, it's too small to be considered its own.
You have to close all the doors of the bathroom in your house then.
Yeah.
But you have a bathroom off the side.
Why do you have to close the door? The door is there's a it's considered a separate room. It's considered a separate room.
Doesn't a toilet, a bathroom, don't we paskin that the toilet, the tire is no longer there because of modern plumbing?
Yes, that's a different. Well, I don't know, we paskin like that, but it's a shaila, right?
Are you saying that la halacha the garbage can?
Yes, I mean I'm gonna double check it, but yeah, if it's in a garbage can, it's fine. That's what I remember, but I'd have to double check.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's.
Are we done already? Or we're not done.
No, we got a few more lines.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Amar Luhu Abaya, Im Kain. Now this next sugi is going to take us for the next block, so we'll just start it now. Amar Luhu Abaya, Im Kain. It's not such a difficult thing. Im Kain Matzinu Mechitza LeIsser. What's going to happen is you can actually come out that you can actually say that there's a mechitza that's going to cause you more problems. It's going to make something usher. Shel malay ein mechitza. If it wouldn't be, there would be no mechitza there. Marchik dalet amas, you distance it dalet amas, right? V'zareya, and you can plant it. V'ilu hashta asura, and now it's usher. Meaning, so here, Akiva, this really gets into the Klayim sugi. What the Gemara is saying, Abaye is saying, now comes out that if you say it's a mechitza, right, it actually makes it more usher than if there was no mechitza. Why? Because if you're saying that it's separate reshuyas, so I could plant the wheat up to the boundary, right, and then the grapes on the other side of the boundary, right? But if there's no mechitza, then I have to have dalet amas. Right? You have to, if there's no mechitza, you want to plant grapes and you want to plant.
What's the difference?
Wheat. One second. You have to plant grape over here, and you need to separate it by 4 amas. So if you have in the large property opening up to the small property, if you say that it's not a fence, then all you have to do is keep it 4 amas away from each other, and then you're okay. But now that you're saying that it's considered one part of one big thing, so now it's going to be usher because you made it into a fence, right? Yeah. So basically what Abaye is saying is that by saying that it's a mechitza can actually sometimes work against you. We were trying to say that it works pro, that you can plant things on this side and that side, right? But if it's not a mechitza, then you can just put it as 4 amas away from each other, right? Meaning, if you didn't have the indentation,
why? What's the difference?
Yard,
why there, if you have no mechitza, if you have a mechitza, and now it goes busser the bigger yard, why is that any different than if there was no mechitza on either side? There would be one chutzner. Now that it goes busser the other chutzner, it's worse. Why?
Well, because you're saying. If you're saying that it's now one big chutzner, right? Now the whole small chutzner became part of the big chutzner. By putting in these mechitzas, you now have adopted the small chutzner as part of the big chutzner.
So fine. So why can't you do 4 amas then? When you adopt it as part of the big chutzner, if it's part of the big chutzner, anytime you're planting the big chutzner, all you need to do is 4 amas. So then, if it's part of the big chutzner, what's the difference? If you planted it in the big chutzner, anywhere in the big chutzner, you want to plant two different things, you would have to do 4 amas. So now that it's part of the big chutzner, how is that any different? L'may nafkamina.
No, because now that you put a mechitza there, right?
It goes bust to the big chutzner. So it's one. Why is that different than saying it's one big chutzner? I don't understand the nuance.
No, meaning now that you put in a chutzner, yeah. Now what it's going to do. This chutzner is what it's going to do. It's going to separate them, right? It's separating the large from. Meaning, let's say you had this big yard, small yard opening to a big yard, right? So what's the deal there? Just keep them more than 4 amas away and finished, right? Now you put up these mechitzas. Now it's 2 separate yards. Correct?
We're saying it's going bus or the big one. What do you mean 2 separate yards? It goes we shade katana bus or gedayla.
But what was it before you put up these two things that jut out?
It would be 1 big yard. And now we're saying it's going bus or the big yard. What does that mean?
Meaning then you would be able to plant 4 amas away from each other.
Right. Well, I don't understand what the nuanced difference between going bus or the big yard is. We're calling it 1 big yard.
No, because now, because, yeah.
Wouldn't it, yeah, I think you have to say the opposite. If there would be no gifufi, if the sidewalls wouldn't be there,
right,
then we would definitely consider this, as far as Kilai Kerem is concerned, 2 different chatzeros.
That's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says if it was 1 big chatzer, then all you have to do is plant 4 amas from each other. Same way if you planted in the big yard by itself 2 different peiros, you would be able to just plant them 4 amas from each other, and that would be fine, like any other din and client. So if we're going shade basar it. Why is that? I don't understand. It's like the Gemara is saying there's something extra when it's being pulled towards the other yard, then different than if it was just one considered halachically 1 big yard.
Correct. So it's meaning, but by putting up these mechitzas, we are now adopting the small yard is being adopted by the big yard, and therefore, since it's 1 big yard, you cannot plant. You're asking why not? Why not just make it 4 amas away?
You can't call it 1 big yard, right? If it's 1 big yard, that's the same. Then dalet amas and move on. Calling it 1 big yard is not good enough in terms of that halacha.
Right.
The Gemara says it's even worse.
What? Because the Gemara
changes it.
What?
The whole marchik daladamas he takes out.
You got
right. Because it would be 2 separate chatzeros.
Right.
Now that you put the gefutim in, it's considered 1 chatzer. He says not like Taisus, yes.
Yeah, I don't understand. In Mali lemechitzas, it would be 1 big thing, and then you could be zereh, right? So then, why is this be'isr then? Then how does the Gemara make sense?
Mali lemechitzas, it would be 2 chatzeros.
Why?
And therefore, because it is 2 chatzeros. That's the metzias.
How? How's it 2 chatzeros?
You mean how?
Wait, it's 2. It's 1.
They're open to each other. It's 1 chatzer. If you don't have any mechitzas at all, it's 1 big chatzer. Who cares?
They belong to 2 different people.
But they're open to each other.
They belong to 2 different people. You're allowed to plant next to each other if it's 2 separate sudders.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But what's the difference?
If it belongs to 1 person, you need a mechitza. If it belongs to 2 people, you don't, because it is 2 sudders.
Oh, it's late already. Let me just finish the next
thing.
few lines. Let me just finish the next few lines, and we'll go back and let the Olam go to sleep. Okay. So Amalei, just like Amalei Reb Zera Labaya. You never find a case that a mechitza will make something asur. If you have a large yard that opens to a small yard, which is the case we've been dealing with, the large yard can carry on Shabbos. The small yard can't carry on Shabbos. Why? Because the small yard is considered like just a doorway for the big one. And if you would equal out the kifufas, meaning if you would build up a wall so that there's nothing sticking out anymore, then the gedola nami asura, the big one, would also become asur. So he's saying, so you see that the wall can make a chumra. So he says, no, hasam silag mechitza. So when you put up,
why when you fill up the
walls,
thing, are you making it asur?
because now it's no longer a door. You have no longer a
Now
door.
you have four
What?
walls.
No, you don't. No, you're not. You're putting it. You're adding it on to where it widens. What's that? So I'm like, Hasam Sila Mechitza. So no, that's not. You're not building a mechitza. You're actually removing a mechitza. Okay, well we finished right here, but we'll continue it tomorrow night because it's another whole Amud, and hopefully I'll have some Legos or something to hopefully make this a little clearer. Yeah. Okay. So good enough. Then it was, what are you saying, Akiva? Akiva, you're basically saying, what's the difference if it's 1 yard or not? Just move it away for 4 amas, right?
There seems to be something. Yeah, there seems to be something a little extra that's going on because you're being shadeh bus of the bigger yard. That if it was just considered 2 yards, one small, one big, and they're open to each other, then you just mark dal amas, you move on. But it seems like because it's being dragged. Bus or the bigger yard, that seems to add an extra layer of isser to the smaller yard that you can't just do be market.
Right. And he's saying, why should it? It could just separate it by 4 amas.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is the crux of the machlekes, Tosfos and the Gra here. Tosfos has a whole different way to explain it.
Right.
Tosfos says kapischa shel gedayla means that we view the entire small chutzir as if it is the Pesach of the Gedayla.
Right, so what does that mean? What does that mean to be the Pesach of Gedayla?
Therefore, the Pesach of Gedayla is right next to the Gedayla. So nowhere in the Katana can you plant. It's as if you're planting in the Pesach.
You're saying if you
doesn't
plant,
matter if it's Daled Amos. Even more, it could be 20 Amos away you can't plant.
Why are you saying that? What's it? You're saying according to Tosfos?
Tosfos says that. Tosfos says that it's kapischa shel gedayla. So it's as if the entire Chatzik Katana is the Pesach of the Gedayla. So therefore, even if you're 20 amos away, you still can't plant.
I know, but what's a pshat in that?
Right.
I don't know what the pshat is, but he's teaching the Gemara that way.
I'm saying this is Akiva l'shitasa. It's Akiva l'shitasa. That the bottom line is does it get nourishment or not? If it doesn't get nourishment, what's the problem? That's how we ask.
Right. No, I'm asking, what does it mean to be? No, let's suspend reality and assume that there's this lumdus of whatever. What does it mean to be pischa shel gedayla? What does that mean? Is that a stam halacha in climb that anything that's the doorway of whatever you can't plant?
That's what it seems.
What that means. Where do we get that from?
It's not. He's not teaching it dafka by kilayim. He's saying that all these dinim are negated to that. The small chutzner is kapischa shel gedayla. It's right there.
What does it mean to be right there? If it's not Daled Amos, it's not Daled Amos.
What do you mean?
You're saying every.
Well, I think this is right to what I was saying before.
I thought what you're saying now.
Kilai Kerem. The Torah says the Kilai Kerem is asur, right? And there's rules of what a Kerem is. If it's not a Kerem, even if it's getting nourishment, it's mutter, but it still has to be a Kerem. If there's a mechitza next to the Kerem, I don't care if it's getting nourishment. It could be 3 inches away.
Let's say that's true, but let's say your pischa shel gedayla is 4 amos away from something else. What? Let's say I would plant that pischa. Let's say I have an opening to a gadol, right? Forgetting the small one for a second. Let's say I planted the pischa shel gedayla, but then I plant something 4 amos from that. Why is that not mutter? Who cares if
where? Which side?
Forget it. Let's say it's 1 chutzner and I plant in the pesach of the. Let's say I'm planting just in the doorway of the actual field, and then I plant 4 amos away from that. Why does it matter? It's pischa shel gedayla. Where does this svara of pischa come from? Why does that all of a sudden connect it to everything else in the sudden? Who cares if pischa shel gedayla? You're just saying words. It could still be Daled Amos away from
wait. So you're still dealing with nourishment being the be-all and end-all of
I'm saying let it be pischa shel gedayla. You can't plant in the doorway of your
It's in the middle of a kerem.
Why? Why is it pesach of a gadol in the middle of the kerem? Why are you saying that? If I plant in the doorway,
which one's the kerem? The gadol or the katana?
Let's say I just plant in a sudden, right? I plant in the doorway of a sudden, forgetting gadol and katan, and then I plant 4 amos away from that doorway. Why is that not mutter? Who cares that it's called pischa shel gedayla?
So now you're changing the case now. That's why. If the
what I'm saying is calling it.
Hold on, I get what you're saying. Your case might be mutter. Your case might be
Of course
mutter
it
in our
is.
case too.
Just because. No, it
in
isn't.
our case too, it is. This is our case is where the whole gedola is a kerem. So the vines go all the way up to the mechitza, to the middle, to the whatever, the border, whatever you want to call it. Now, if we're gonna view the entire Chatzah Katana as the border and part of the big one, then you're planting in the middle of a kerem 2 inches away from a vine. You're going the other way now. You're saying I'm planting in the Pesach, so let me plant 4 amos away in the
Gemara
Gedolah.
says,
that would work.
but that's what the Gemara
true.
says. The Gemara says,
No.
okay,
I gotta log off because I got somebody here, but you fight it out. Let me know what you come out with.
I have to go also, but I don't. The Gemara Mama says this. The Gemara says, "Shalomale ein mechitza marchik arba amos." You could do it if you metias or marchik al amos. It works. That's what the Gemara says.
Without the mechitzas,
if you were to plant it b'metzias 4 amos away, in both cases, one would be usher and one would be mutter, depending on the gefufim. Not that it's kerem throughout the whole stud up until the mechitza.
if you had one chatzar, you would be correct. Then you have a kerem on one side and a sada on the other. That's mutter. That's fine.
I'm talking about if you planted the exact same spot, depending on if there's a gefufim or not, it would either be usher or mutter. Whether it's if you planted 4 amos away from the door from the small chutzner, and there's no gefufim, it would be usher. But if there was gefufim, it would be mutter. That's what the Gemara says. That's
on which side? On which side? Which side
on the
are you
gadol.
talking about?
On the gadol.
Where's the kerem? Where's the vines?
Let's just say it's in the gadol.
So the whole gadol is a kerem.
Except up to, in Mitzias, I don't know what you mean by that.
Yes, the Mitzias. Where did you plant vines until? Up until
4 amos into the 4 amos away from the where the two are not divided, but where the two meet.
You'd be right, 100%. That would be mutter.
That's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says,
yes, it is.
The Gemara is saying the difference is the gefufim. I can't keep going back. I have to go. I'm reading the Gemara. I'm saying the Gemara is saying the only chilik is whether it's gefufim or not. You could have the exact same case, and the din is when it's gefufim. That's what the Gemara says. No, I'm not.
No, it's
the
not.
Gemara says the difference.
Akiva, you're reading it wrong. You're reading it wrong.
I'm not.
What's the case of the Brisa? Or the whatever?
I have to go. I apologize. I really apologize.
Okay. Read the case again.
Okay.